This is Daily Armenia, ＳիվիլNeթ's daily news digest. Here's what's making headlines in Armenia today. Russian Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov has criticized the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, known as the OSCE, for its handling of the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. The OSCE failed in Nagorno-Karabakh, Lavrov wrote in an article published today by Rossiyskaya Gazeta, a government-run newspaper. Its Minsk group never managed to create conditions for dialogue between the conflicting sides, and after its Western participants ceased cooperation with Russia, it completely lost its meaning, he explained. The remarks were part of a broader critique of the OSCE on the 50th anniversary of the 1975 Helsinki Final Act. Signed by 57 countries, including the Soviet Union, the United States, and most European countries, the agreement laid the groundwork for easing military tensions and enhancing European security amid the Cold War. The OSCE emerged from this framework and established the Minsk Group in 1992 to help resolve the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict through mediation. Throughout the 1990s and the early 2000s, the Minsk Group, co-chaired by France, Russia, and the United States, served as a key platform for talks between Armenia and Azerbaijan. However, its influence dwindled following the 2020 war in Karabakh, after which Baku declared the conflict resolved and rejected further OSCE involvement. Instead, Russia assumed the role of mediator after the 2020 war by deploying peacekeepers to Nagorno-Karabakh under a Moscow-brokered ceasefire. However, it failed to prevent further Azerbaijani escalation, including the blockade of the region and the September 2023 offensive, which resulted in the complete depopulation of Nagorno-Karabakh, as more than 100,000 Armenians were forced to flee and seek refuge in Armenia proper. Although the Minsk Group has been inactive since Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine, which halted cooperation between Moscow and Western co-chairs, the group still exists formally. Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev has cited its dissolution as a precondition for signing a normalization deal with Yerevan, along with constitutional changes in Armenia, to eliminate any alleged territorial claims. Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan has acknowledged that the Minsk Group could indeed be disbanded, but insists that this should happen alongside the signing of a normalization agreement. He has emphasized the need for guarantees that its dissolution would not leave room for renewed Azerbaijani aggression in the absence of an international mediation mechanism. As for the Russian peacekeeping mission in Nagorno-Karabakh, conflict analyst Olesya Vartanyan recently published a detailed article examining why it failed. The piece, originally posted by the London School of Economics Conflict and Civicness Research publication and republished by CivilNet, explores how Russia's unilateral approach and lack of international backing contributed to the collapse of the mission, and what that failure means for peacekeeping efforts elsewhere. According to Vartanyan, Russia's authority in Karabakh was limited to basic self-defense, and unlike in other post-Soviet missions, the troops lacked permanent infrastructure and international endorsement. A joint Russian-Turkish monitoring center was set up nearby, but it did little to bolster their efficiency. From the beginning, the mission was overshadowed by Russia's improving ties with Azerbaijan. The situation worsened in February 2022, when Baku and Moscow signed a strategic alliance, just days before Russia's invasion of Ukraine. This alignment, Vartanyan argues, signaled that Moscow had little political will to challenge Azerbaijan or fully protect Nagorno-Karabakh's Armenian population. Despite growing tensions, Russian peacekeepers scaled back key functions. By late 2022, they had reduced escort missions for Armenian civilians, ceased accompanying religious pilgrims, and were distributing mostly diaspora-funded aid. When Azerbaijan imposed a 9-month blockade and launched a final military offensive in September 2023, Russian peacekeepers, once seen as the guardians of the Lachin corridor, the only road to Armenia, stood aside. The mission ended with the deaths of several Russian personnel, including a deputy commander. Unlike in past conflicts, Moscow accepted Azerbaijan's apology and withdrew without retaliation. Vartanyan concluded that peacekeeping efforts without binding international guarantees are doomed to fail, serving as a warning for future arrangements in Ukraine and elsewhere. Read the full article at the link below. In this week's episode of Insights, host Eric Hakopian unpacks Armenia's $500 million AI cloud partnership with Firebird and Nvidia. Their plan is to create the only data center of its kind. He then tackles Baku's phony trials of Armenian hostages and Yerevan's lack of response. Watch the full show by following the link below.
We've had some interesting.
And as always, please follow CivilNet for the latest news and independent reporting from our contributors on the ground here in Armenia.